This is the story of the single worst moment in a Pokemon's career. Imagine being at the absolute peak of your prime, standing on the grandest stage of the league, and choosing to throw it all away. This is the tragic, infuriating, and ultimately legendary story of Ash's Charizard, a Pokemon who went from an all-star rookie pick to a massive disappointment and eventually rose from the ashes to become a king. But to truly understand how the ultimate fumble happened, we have to rewind the clock, all the way back to Season 1. Welcome to the Kanto region. Ash Ketchum is our main character, and for lack of a better term, he is completely clueless. He's a 10-year-old rookie trainer who barely knows how to hold a Pokeball, let alone raise a team of elemental monsters. But what Ash lacks in experience, he makes up for with raw, unfiltered empathy. If he sees a Pokemon suffering, he will risk his life to save it. And that brings us to a rocky pass in the pouring rain, where Ash meets Charmander. Charmander is sitting on a rock, completely drenched, shivering, and looking entirely heartbroken. Ash, being the good guy he is, immediately tries to catch him to rush him to a Pokemon Center, but Charmander refuses. He won't budge. Pikachu manages to communicate with him and drops a bombshell on the gang. Charmander already has an owner, and he's waiting for him to come back. Skeptical, Ash and the gang head to a local lodge to wait out the storm, and that's where they overhear the most villainous conversation in Pokemon history. A trainer named Damian is actively bragging to his buddies about how he abandoned his Charmander in the woods because he was too weak. Just process that for a second. Brock, usually the calm and collected one, immediately presses Damian. He warns him that a Charmander will literally die if the flame on its tail goes out, and with the heavy rain, it's a death sentence. Damian couldn't care less. Without hesitating, Ash, Brock, and Misty sprint back out into the freezing rain. When they arrive, it's almost too late. Charmander isn't just freezing. He's being ruthlessly attacked by a flock of vicious Spearows. Pikachu blasts the birds away with a Thundershock, and they quickly wrap Charmander in a jacket to protect his dying flame. They rush him to Nurse Joy, who works a miracle and saves his life. But trauma doesn't heal overnight. Later that night, Charmander sneaks out of the clinic. Despite the near-death experience, he's developed a brutal case of Stockholm Syndrome. He actually thinks returning to his abuser is the right thing to do because Damian is all he knows. While wandering around, Charmander accidentally stumbles into Team Rocket, who have just trapped Pikachu. Unleashing a massive flamethrower, Charmander single-handedly torches Team Rocket, saving Pikachu and repaying his debt to Ash. But guess who was hiding in the shadows watching the whole thing? Damian. Seeing Charmander's true terrifying power, this absolute bum completely switches up. He walks out clapping, trying to gaslight Charmander into thinking this was all a test of strength, and that he was coming back for him the whole time. But Charmander isn't stupid. He's sick of the lies. He refuses the Pokeball. Damian snaps, calling Charmander worthless and weak. In one of the most satisfying moments of the entire anime, Charmander gets his revenge, blasting his abusive ex-trainer with a flamethrower to the face. With Damian out of the picture, Charmander officially joins Ash's team. This should be the perfect happy ending, right? Boy meets Pokemon, they become best friends and take over the world. And for a while, it was. Charmander was undeniably the MVP of Ash's early squad. He was insanely loyal. In one episode, when the gang gets trapped in a blizzard, Charmander uses his tail to keep Ash and the rest of the team from freezing to death. He was Ash's undeniable #1 draft pick. He was winning battles he had no business winning. He was leveling up at a terrifying pace. Eventually, during a massive battle against an army of Exegators, Charmander racks up an insane amount of XP. He glows white and evolves into Charmeleon. This is supposed to be a massive upgrade, but instead, it was the exact moment everything started to rot. The innocent, fiercely loyal Charmander was dead. In his place stood Charmeleon, a rebellious, arrogant teenager who had absolutely zero respect for Ash. If you've only watched the anime, this sudden attitude problem might have seemed completely random. But if you're a gamer, you know the mechanics. If you don't have enough gym badges, high-level Pokemon will outright ignore your commands. It's basically like trying to 3-star a maxed-out town hall with level 1 troops. You're just going to get humbled. Charmeleon looked at Ash's resume, deemed him completely unworthy of his immense power, and went rogue. Things escalated quickly. Ash tried to use Charmeleon in a friendly sparring match against a weak Paraz to help it evolve. Charmeleon didn't understand the word friendly. He went completely unhinged, trying to brutally finish the Paraz off, forcing Ash to literally beg him to stop. Charmeleon responded by torching Ash with a flamethrower. Ash was heartbroken. His best friend had turned into a monster he couldn't control. So, Ash made the only logical choice. He benched him. Charmeleon didn't see the light of day again until Ash was in a literal life-or-death situation. Trapped in a canyon and being hunted by prehistoric fossil Pokémon, Ash desperately threw Charmeleon out for protection. Charmeleon just sat there, smug, unbothered. He genuinely didn't care if Ash lived or died. He just wanted to take a nap. But then, a massive Aerodactyl swoops down, grabs Ash, and on its way up, violently swats Charmeleon across the face. Aerodactyl didn't just hit Charmeleon, it hit his ego. Furious that another Pokémon dared to disrespect him, Charmeleon's rage boils over, triggering his final evolution. He becomes the legendary towering winged beast we know today, Charizard. Charizard takes to the skies, brawls with Aerodactyl, and saves the day. Ash is ecstatic, thinking his buddy is finally back. But reality hits hard. Charizard didn't evolve to save Ash. He evolved purely out of spite to prove he was the apex predator. The dynamic hadn't changed at all. Charizard remained a bench warmer until Ash reached the 7th gym leader, Blaine. Ash boldly sends out Charizard, who, as usual, immediately lies down and refuses to fight. That is, until Blaine calls out Magmar. Magmar had just stopped a literal volcano from erupting. Charizard looks at this fiery beast and, for the first time, recognizes a worthy opponent. What follows is one of the greatest 1v1 fights in anime history. They clash over an open volcano, trading massive blows until Charizard takes Magmar into the stratosphere, finishing him off with an earth-shattering seismic toss. It was a brilliant display of dominance. But even after winning Ash the gym badge, Charizard still viewed his trainer as an amateur. To understand Charizard's toxic behavior, we have to look at the psychological damage Damian caused. Charizard was abandoned for being weak. Now that he possesses godlike power, he is terrified that if he listens to a weak trainer like Ash, he will become weak himself, and the cycle of abandonment will repeat. But this trauma leads to the height of Charizard's career and his ultimate downfall, the Indigo League. This is the Super Bowl of the Kanto region. Over 200 elite trainers battling it out. Ash plays it smart, using his reliable, loyal Pokémon to fight his way all the way to the top 16. But in this crucial round against a kid named Richie, Ash is backed into a corner. He's down to his last Pokémon. He has to gamble. He sends out Charizard. The crowd erupts. Charizard steps onto the battlefield, an absolute unit of destruction. Richie sends out his Charmander, and Charizard obliterates it with terrifying ease. Then Richie sends out his ace, a Pikachu named Sparky. Charizard looks at this tiny electric mouse. He looks at the grand stadium. He possesses the power to sweep Richie's entire team in seconds. But his pride completely takes over. He is insulted. He expected to fight dragons and titans, not a base-level starter. So, in front of thousands of screaming fans on live television, with Ash's entire dream on the line, Charizard yawns, lies down on the dirt, and goes to sleep. The referee blows the whistle. Charizard is disqualified for refusing to battle. Ash gets eliminated from the Indigo League. The years of training, the badges, the journey, all thrown in the trash because of a lizard's ego. If I were Ash, that Pokeball is going straight into the ocean, but Ash isn't us. Ash is patient. During the next season in the Orange Islands, Charizard's arrogance finally catches up to him. Going up against a wildly overpowered Poliwrath, Charizard refuses to dodge and takes a point-blank Ice Beam. He gets frozen completely solid and is defeated. For the first time in his life, Charizard experiences humiliating, agonizing defeat. And worse, his core body temperature is dropping. If his tail flame goes out, he dies. Ash doesn't yell. He doesn't complain about the loss. He strips off his jacket, gathers blankets, and spends the entire grueling night violently rubbing Charizard's skin to generate body heat. His hands are bleeding. He is exhausted, but he refuses to leave his Pokemon's side. The trauma breaks. The next morning, a reborn Charizard takes to the sky. He obeys every single one of Ash's commands, perfectly in sync, and absolutely bodies the Poliwrath in a rematch. From that day on, Charizard became the most lethal weapon in Ash's arsenal. They swept the Orange Islands, they crushed the Johto region, they were an unstoppable duo. Word spread so fast about Ash's legendary Charizard that they received an exclusive invitation to the Charicific Valley. This is an elite training ground where only the strongest, most ruthless Charizards on the planet live, fight, and train. Ash and Charizard walk through the gates feeling on top of the world, and within 5 minutes, they are completely humbled. Ash's Charizard picks a fight with a local and gets thrown across the valley like a ragdoll. He tries again, denied. The valley manager, Liza, brutally points out that Ash's Charizard is actually the weakest one in the entire sanctuary. He had spent his whole life being a big fish in a small pond, beating up unevolved Pokémon. Against his own kind, he was nothing. Liza flat out banishes him from the valley for being too weak. Charizard is devastated. He sits in the freezing lake all night, staring at his reflection, desperate to prove his worth. Eventually, with a little secret help from Team Rocket, staging a fake attack to make him look heroic, Liza agrees to let him stay and train. But this presents a heart-wrenching dilemma. To become the absolute best, Charizard has to stay in the valley, which means he has to leave Ash. Charizard is ready to decline. He finally got his best friend back. He doesn't want to lose him, but Ash makes the ultimate sacrifice. He knows that staying with him will only hold Charizard back. So, hiding his tears, Ash turns his back, yells at Charizard to stay, and runs away without looking back. It is one of the most emotional, gut-wrenching goodbyes in television history. Ash left his strongest Pokémon, his ace, his best friend, so that Charizard could reach his true potential. And it worked. Charizard would return periodically throughout the series, infinitely stronger, saving Ash against legendary Pokémon and proving that true loyalty isn't demanded, it's earned. From an abused, abandoned lizard in the rain to a rebellious menace to the undeniable king of the skies, Ash's Charizard didn't just have the biggest fumble, he had the greatest redemption arc of all time.